That's right.
No, it is pretty glamorous. I mean, look at this bookstore. This is the most beautiful. I don't know, how far are we from Kansas? I hope we can come from New Jersey frequently. This is a very emotional day for me. I'll try not to get too choked up, but the truth is that if it were not for Nancy Pickard, I would not be in this bookstore with my family on book tour. We are on a 7-month, 40,000-mile book tour. Kansas City is about the midway point, a little past the midway point. Without Nancy, I wouldn't have this book, not in this form anyway. And I've been telling this story also all across the country. I mean, so I can't tell it with Nancy here because there's all these references to her. Like, there's, for instance, the time when Nancy emailed me to say she liked my book, and I said, Nancy, I love you, and if we were having any more children, we would name them all Nancy. It always gets a lot of laughs, but I can't really tell it Nancy.
Go ahead.
I'll make a very long story short, because I do want to talk about the 30 years, and you are interested in the editing and how the publishing process has changed, and I'm fascinated in that too. But very briefly, Cover of Snow is my debut novel, but it's the 8th one I wrote. I could not find a publisher for it. I had agents all along. These were the numbers. I was represented by an agent for the first time in the year 2000. That first novel almost sold. It had 3 almost offers, and there was the day that my agent called me up and said, we're going to have an auction. And all those almost offers dissolved. So in a period of 11 years, I wrote 8 novels. I had 3 different agents. 5 of those novels were submitted, and we had 15 of those almost offers on those novels. And somewhere along the line, I read the majestic book, Scent of Rain and Lightning, which had done something that I was really aspiring to do with this 8th novel, which was to make the weather and the setting a force in the story.
But Jenny had clearly worked so hard, and she hit a real soft spot in my heart. I have this soft spot for writers who have that exact same history. My dear friend, the mystery writer Susan Dunlap, is somebody who wrote 10 novels and that were all rejected before she was finally published with her next one. And those 10 novels, as far as I know, still sit in her closet. That is, to me, such evidence of hard work and of true commitment. How can you ignore that? But more than that was just the fact that so many editors had almost taken her. And so I just find that really heartbreaking. You have the record that I've ever heard of the number of close calls. And that's no record anybody wants, because it's just, you know how it is. You get so close and you think they're going to take you, and then at the last minute, one person may be in the publishing house after it's gone through the editor who wants to acquire you, and it's gone to her boss or his boss, and it's gone to the editorial committee, and the marketing department likes it, and then it's maybe one person in the top says, I don't know, I'm thinking not this book. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. So anyway, so what did I have worked? And the proof is here, and I don't think she knows this, but our editor, Linda, doesn't talk about her authors behind their backs unless she has good things to say, but she said that every time she'd offered criticism, and every time her assistant Dana, darling Dana, had offered criticism, that Jenny just was a sponge, just took it all in, immediately went back and started working on it, and just worked so hard and really proved herself to them. So I'm really proud of her, and I'm delighted to have had a little role in it. Now, by the way, it has been wonderful. The thing that hasn't changed is that we're still writers, and it's still the book. And that one of the nice things about, I've said this before, you all have heard me say this, one of the nice things about living here is that it's easy to just ignore the publishing world and just pay attention to the next word on the page and the next paragraph and the next chapter. And really all the rest of that stuff is mostly out of our control. So all we can do is work on the words and make them as good as we can make them. And then try not to go insane with everything else that goes along with it. And obviously that's what you do. I mean, you work so hard on getting the words right. And one of the things I always hear people say about her book today someone was telling me that they picked up your book and started to read it without even realizing you were coming, and they really liked it. And they said something that she's a beautiful writer. Well, that doesn't just flow out automatically. There's talent there. But that beautiful writing has been worked on and polished. And, yeah.
By the way, that is just what Dana said about Nancy's work. And he was trying to... Come on in.
Oh, I don't understand. I know.
He was saying that, in trying to get the next book right, and he was talking about Nancy and also Tana French, and he said, and one of the things we're thinking about when we think about Nancy is lyrical and how lyrical her writing is. And I think that was another thing that spoke to me when I read Scent of Rain and Lightning, because there's so much great mystery and suspense out there, but I don't think there's that much where, yeah, you have that kind of poetic quality in the book, and it doesn't detract from the stakes. I mean, that's a hard thing to pull off.
It's nice to hear that Dana said something nice about me behind my back.
Dana did.
So Jenny, I was just curious because in the beginning Nancy said that you had a really graceful, beautiful online presence. And, I was wondering because I love to network with people, but I do find that between creative time and basically networking time or social media time, it's a huge shift, right?
Yes.
And it requires a lot of energy in both.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how you came to that, how you balance it, what you love about both, what you don't like.
Well, so this is my secret to being able to balance the writing and the social media, and that is that when I write a new book, I write in a windowless closet in my very old Victorian home on a machine that's running Windows 98. It does not have internet, and it doesn't even have a USB port. So I back up on floppy disks. So when I'm writing a new book, I am really cut off from all that stuff you just mentioned. And then I usually write until about maybe noon, and then I go downstairs and I return to the 21st century, whatever century we're in, and connect. And I don't think that I am that, I mean, there are people with real social media presences who do a great job of it, but just, I like to take part in the listservs, the mystery listservs that Nancy mentioned. Dorothy L. is wonderful. And I like reading about other writers, and I do have a blog where we feature a lot of writers.
Well, and you also help run the debut authors program for international fellow writers.
At some point, I discovered that they were, those tours, that kind of tour in those days was not about us. In a way, it wasn't even about our books. It was about 2 or 3 different things. One was the sales department was the one that dictated where you went. And you went where their best stores were. And you went because they'd given a list of authors who were available to those stores, and stores that for some reason picked you. And so it didn't mean, well, so anyway, that's one of the reasons. When the big box stores came in, there was a lot of resistance to sending us to independent bookstores. We had to fight to continue to go to independent bookstores because Barnes & Noble and Borders would object. They didn't want us to go to independent bookstores. And let's see, what else? Just that it also wasn't about the appearances. It kind of didn't matter from the publisher's point of view, although they would be pleased to hear you'd had 300 people. If you only had 2, but you got good media, that's what they really took you there for. And it was a little easier in those days to get media, to get a little TV and a little radio, a little newspaper. And I personally benefited, particularly the year I was president of National Sisters in Crime, because that's when Women in Mysteries, that was new, and it gave me something to talk about. Fiction is hard to sell to the media, and hard to get interviews for, and nonfiction is much better, and that's about the closest I could get to talking about nonfiction. Mysteries are also, don't you think, really hard to talk about when you're being interviewed, because you can't give anything away. You can't even kind of tell what it's about in a way, because what it's about can give away what it is too. So
A woman wakes up.
How long
were you on tour for, Nancy? When they did it for you, how would it work?
Well, sometimes I'd be gone as long as 3 weeks, but they would maybe send me home once. There would always be one night where I'd be someplace, and I'd just feel like, why am I doing this meaningless thing? And I just start to cry and feel very sorry for myself while I had room service. And then they got desperate. They started sending us in pairs and in groups. And Pocket sent all the mystery writers out like that one year, and they paired me with Jeremiah Healy, who is one of the characters of the mystery world. And Jerry and I were on tour together for 2 weeks. That was a hoot. And I don't think it made a bit of a difference to our sales. And it's really hard, or it was in those days, to judge how you were doing. And I think I only had 2 instances of thinking that touring actually, in that way, helped. I mean, not that it didn't, just that I couldn't. Nobody had data. And one was in Denver. I hit the bestseller list for 1 week. And that was because I had a good deal more media than I'd ever had before. That was it. And the same thing happened in LA. And again, it was because there was a lot of media at that particular time, which I think must have meant that there were no other bigger writers in town. So, I mean, it's just very hard to judge. And when you go around, I think you at least know how each store is doing. But it's still.
But see, I do have a lot of hesitations with that model. I mean, you're out for 3 weeks and you were flying.
Right.
So, and what you said about the 4 other mystery bookstores, so they flew you to Tattered Cover, which is a wonderful place, but there was a whole, constellation of bookstores around there, and the advantage to driving and doing it in this crazy way is that we can literally stop, every 5 miles if we want to. And for me, I mean, Nancy made the bestseller list and all that because there was media attention, and there has been some of this actually. The book did make the SIBA, which is the Southern International Booksellers Association bestseller list the week I was in the South, and so there was a little bit of that. But for me, I think I felt as if it weren't so much about book sales, but about connecting with the people who, maybe would, not even about this first book, but maybe take a career from the first book and try to build it as it, grows or something.
I think this really is true. They're not, well, it is wonderful to have you in Kansas City. We hope you come back.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Thank you guys for letting